So this is part 3 of the Refusal of the Ascetic, Sri Aurobindo's, from Sri Aurobindo's The Life Divine. But this conscious being, which is the truth of the infinite supermind, is more than the universe and lives independently in its own inexpressible infinity as well as in the cosmic harmonies. Worlds live by that. That does not live by the world. And as we can enter into the cosmic consciousness and be one with all cosmic existence, so we can enter into the world transcending consciousness and become superior to all cosmic existence. And then arises the question, which first occurred to us, whether this transcendence is necessarily also a rejection. What relation has this universe to the beyond? For at the gates of the transcendent stands that mere and perfect spirit described in the Upanishads, luminous, pure, sustaining the world, but inactive in it, without sinews of energy, without flaw of duality, without scar of division, unique, identical, free from all appearance of relation and of multiplicity. The pure self of the Advaitins, the inactive Brahman, the transcendent silence. And the mind, when it passes those gates suddenly, without intermediate transitions, receives a sense of the unreality of the world and the sole reality of the silence, which is one of the most powerful and convincing experiences of which the human mind is capable. Here, in the perception of this pure self, or of the non-being behind it, we have the starting point for a second negation, parallel at the other pole to the materialistic, but more complete, more final, more perilous in its effects on the individuals or collectivities that hear its potent call to the wilderness, the refusal of the ascetic. It is this revolt of spirit against matter that for 2,000 years, since Buddhism disturbed the balance of the old Aryan world, has dominated increasingly the Indian mind. Not that the sense of the cosmic illusion is the whole of Indian thought. There are other philosophical statements, other religious aspirations. Nor has some attempt at an adjustment between the two terms been wanting, even from the most extreme philosophies. But all have lived in the shadow of the great refusal, and the final end of life for all is the garb of the ascetic. The general conception of existence has been permeated with the Buddhistic theory of the chain of karma, and with the consequent antinomy of bondage and liberation. Bondage by birth, liberation by cessation of birth. Therefore, all voices are joined in one great consensus, that not in this world of the dualities can there be our kingdom of heaven, but beyond, whether in the joys of the eternal or the high beatitude of Brahmaloka, or whether in the joys of the eternal Vrindavan or the high beatitude of Brahmaloka. And Vrindavan is also Goloka, the Vaishnava heaven of eternal beauty and bliss. And Brahmaloka is the highest state of pure existence, consciousness and beatitude, attainable by the soul without complete extinction in the indefinable. So therefore all voices are joined in one great consensus that not in this world of the dualities can there be our kingdom of heaven, but beyond, whether in the joys of the eternal Vrindavan or the high beatitude of Brahmaloka, beyond all manifestations in some ineffable nirvana, or where all separate experience is lost in the featureless unity of the indefinable existence. And through many centuries, a great army of shining witnesses, saints and teachers, names sacred to Indian memory and dominant in Indian imagination, have borne always the same witness and swelled always the same lofty and distant appeal. Renunciation, the sole path of knowledge. Acceptation of physical life, the act of the ignorant. Cessation from birth, the right use of human birth. The call of the spirit, the recoil from matter. For an age out of sympathy with the ascetic spirit, and throughout all the rest of the world, the hour of the anchorite may seem to have passed or to be passing. It is easy to attribute this great trend to the failing of vital energy in an ancient race tired out by its burden, its once vast share in the common advance, exhausted by its many-sided contribution to the sum of human effort and human knowledge. But we have seen that it corresponds to a truth of existence, a state of conscious realization which stands at the very summit of our possibility. In practice, also, the ascetic spirit is an indispensable element in human perfection, and even its separate affirmation cannot be avoided, so long as the race has not at the other end liberated its intellect and its vital habits from subjection to an always insistent animalism. We seek indeed a larger and completer affirmation. We perceive that in the Indian ascetic ideal, the great Vedantic formula, one without a second, has not been read sufficiently in the light of that other formula equally imperative. All this is the Brahman. The passionate aspiration of man upward to the divine has not been sufficiently related to the descending movement of the divine, leaning downward to embrace eternally its manifestation. Its meaning in matter has not been so well understood as its truth in the spirit. The reality which the Sannyasin seeks has been grasped in its full height, but not, as by the ancient Vedantins, in its full extent and comprehensiveness. But in our completer affirmation, we must not minimize the part of the pure spiritual impulse. As we have seen how greatly materialism has served the ends of the divine, so we must acknowledge the still greater service rendered by asceticism to life. We shall preserve the truths of material science and its real utilities in the final harmony, even if many or even all of its existing forms have to be broken or left aside. And even greater scruple of right preservation must guide us in our dealing with the legacy, however actually diminished or depreciated, of the Aryan past. That's the end of chapter 3. I'll start another video series with chapter 4 called Reality Omnipresent. I'm going to read about 16 more pages tonight. So be prepared.